Most people have a deal they made with themselves somewhere along the way. It was not a conscious deal. It was not signed or even spoken out loud. But it is there, operating in the background of almost every decision, shaping the entire structure of how a life gets organized. The deal goes like this. First, I will build the success. First, I will reach the level. First, I will have the security, the freedom, the financial situation that allows me to stop worrying about money. And then, once all of that is in place, I will be happy. Then I will have the space to figure out what actually matters. Then I will slow down and be present and enjoy what I have built. You probably recognize the deal. You may be in the middle of it right now. Carl Jung would recognize it too. He saw it in person, across decades of clinical work, in people who arrived in his office after they had made good on their side of the bargain. People who had built the success, who had reached the level, who had the financial situation they were aiming for, and who were, sitting across from Jung, deeply confused about why the happiness had not shown up. Not everyone. Some people who achieve financial success find genuine fulfillment in it, but enough people that Jung noticed a pattern, that he named it, that he spent years trying to understand what was happening to the people who built everything they set out to build, and still felt, in some essential way, that something was missing. He called what was missing the connection to the self, and he found, consistently enough to trust it, that this connection was not a reward that arrived after success had been achieved. It was the source from which both genuine success and genuine happiness flow, and when it was absent, both tended to be hollow. The success produced, at best, the relief of problems temporarily solved. The happiness failed to arrive because it had never been the kind of thing that came from the outside in the first place. This video is about the specific, nameable, workable piece that most conversations about wealth and happiness leave out. The missing piece, not a technique, not a mindset hack, a fundamental reorientation of what you are actually building and where you are building it from. Let us start with the most important thing Jung observed about the relationship between wealth and happiness. The thing that, once you hear it clearly, makes the rest of the framework almost obvious. There is a specific version of this experience that almost everyone who has achieved significant success knows, and that almost nobody talks about directly. Jung would have recognized it immediately because he saw it consistently in his clinical work. It is the arrival, the moment when the thing you were working toward actually arrives. The income level, the business milestone, the professional recognition, the financial security that was the goal. The moment when the deal you made with yourself is supposed to be fulfilled. And in that moment, instead of the happiness you were expecting, what often arrives is something much stranger. A brief surge of genuine relief, sometimes genuine joy, real and not to be minimized. And then, within days or weeks, the gradual return of the same interior quality that was present before the milestone, the same low-level dissatisfaction, the same sense of something missing, the same question, now more uncomfortable because you have fewer excuses for it, of whether this is actually it. Jung called this the impoverishment of the conscious personality, the condition of a person who has organized their entire psychological energy around the pursuit of an external goal, and who arrives at the goal to find that the interior life, which was set aside for the duration of the pursuit, has not been waiting quietly. It has atrophied. The parts of the self that were not useful to the project were not maintained. The connections to what genuinely mattered, what genuinely moved the person, what genuinely constituted their particular form of aliveness, were not kept alive, and the wealth arise into an interior that is not equipped to inhabit it, not because the person is ungrateful or broken, because the work of building the exterior and the work of maintaining the interior are not the same work, and when only one of them is being done, the other deteriorates. And a deteriorated interior cannot be made whole by an improved exterior, however genuinely improved the exterior is. This is not a counsel of despair. It is a description of the specific gap that the missing piece is designed to close. The interior work that has to happen alongside the exterior work, not after it. If both wealth and happiness are going to be genuinely available at the same time, they are not sequential. They are not two separate goals to be achieved in order. They are not a before and an after, a means and an end, a sacrifice to be made now for a payoff to be received later. They are subproducts of the same source, and when they are pursued as separate goals in sequence, the sequence itself ensures that the second one remains perpetually out of reach. Here is how it works. When a person pursues wealth as the primary goal, the organizing principle of how they structure their time and energy and attention, they tend to organize themselves in the way that is most efficient for producing the outcome they are pursuing. They optimize for the metric. They do what generates the result. They develop the skills and the strategies and the discipline that success requires. And they set aside, not always fully consciously, the things that do not contribute directly to the goal, the interests that do not seem financially relevant, the relationships that require attention without immediate return, the inner life, the questions about what actually matters and who they actually are and what they genuinely find meaningful. All of that gets managed around rather than engaged with because it does not fit cleanly into the project of building the success. This is not a moral failure. It is a reasonable adaptation to a clear goal. The problem is that the things being set aside are not actually separate from the goal. They are the source of the goal's sustainable version. And when they are set aside long enough, when the inner life goes sufficiently unattended for sufficiently long, the wealth that is built on a foundation that cannot support what the person was actually trying to build. Jung said it with characteristic precision. He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakens. The sequence of first wealth, then happiness, is the dream. The awakening is the recognition that you have it backwards. Let us talk about the specific thing that Jung identified as the source of both genuine wealth and genuine happiness, because this is where the framework becomes practical, where it stops being philosophy and becomes something you can actually use. He called it the self. And the self, in Jung's framework, is not a mystical abstraction. It is the most practically real thing about you. It is the totality of who you actually are, including the parts that have not yet been developed, including the capacities that have not yet been expressed, including the specific and irreplaceable form of value that only you, with your particular combination of experience and perspective and capability, can bring to the world. The self is not the ego. The ego is the everyday managing center of your personality. The part that has a name and a history and a strategy and a set of well-practiced skills for navigating the world. The ego is necessary and functional and should not be dismissed. But the ego is not the whole. And when you build a financial life entirely from the ego, from the performed competence and the strategic positioning and the optimization for external metrics, you build a life that has the shape of success but lacks the substance of it. The substance of genuine wealth, the kind that sustains rather than depletes, the kind that grows rather than merely accumulates, comes from the self, from the specific form of genuine value that only you can provide, from the work that is genuinely yours, not the work you chose because it seemed achievable or because someone told you it was in demand, but the work that emerges from the deepest layer of who you are, and that therefore has a quality of authenticity and engagement that cannot be replicated by anyone who is not you. And the substance of genuine happiness, the kind that persists rather than requiring constant renewal, the kind that is present even in difficulty rather than only available in ideal circumstances, also comes from the self, from the experience of living in genuine alignment with who you actually are, of moving through the day in contact with what genuinely matters to you, rather than in performance of what is expected of you. When the self is the source, wealth and happiness are not sequential. They are simultaneous. They emerge together from the same root. The person who has built a financial life from the self is the person who is genuinely doing their work, not performing a role, and who is therefore genuinely satisfied by what they have built, not merely relieved by the metrics. The missing piece is not a strategy. It is the source. Now let us talk about the specific trap that most people who are building financial success fall into. The one that produces wealth without genuine satisfaction. The one that is so ubiquitous and so well-functioning that most people inside it do not recognize they are in it until the wealth arrives and the happiness does not. Jung called it the persona, and the persona is, in a sentence, the version of yourself that you have built to be accepted and admired by the world. Not a lie, a performance. The professional, the competent one, the person who delivers results and meets expectations and presents themselves in the way that produces the response they need to function effectively. The persona is a real and necessary psychological structure. Without the ability to adapt how you present yourself to different contexts and different audiences, daily social and professional life becomes genuinely unmanageable. The problem is not having a persona. The problem is when the persona becomes the primary vehicle for generating wealth, when the strategy for financial success is essentially the strategy of maintaining and optimizing the performance, of being the version of yourself that is most likely to be rewarded. Because here is the specific cost that Jung observed in people who have built wealth primarily through the persona. It never stops. The performance never ends. The persona requires continuous maintenance. Every new relationship is another context where the performance has to be calibrated and executed. Every new level of success brings new expectations that the persona has to meet. Every moment of genuine fatigue or genuine uncertainty or genuine not knowing has to be managed behind the performance, because the persona cannot be seen to have those things. The result is a specific kind of exhaustion that no vacation fixes, because the exhaustion is not from the work. It is from the performance of the work. It is the energetic cost of being always on, always managing how you are perceived, always ensuring that the version of yourself that the world is seeing is the version that produces the response you need. This exhaustion is incompatible with genuine happiness, not as a moral issue, as an energetic one. Genuine happiness requires something that the persona project consistently consumes: the experience of being genuinely yourself, of not performing, of existing without the continuous management of how you are coming across, of resting in who you actually are rather than working to present who you need to appear to be. This is not a reason to dismantle the persona. It is a reason to develop what Jung called the relationship between the persona and the self, to begin to understand which parts of what you present to the world are genuinely you and which parts are performance, and to begin, gradually and imperfectly, to move toward generating wealth from the genuine parts rather than only the performed parts. There is a very specific phenomenon that Jung observed and documented that is worth naming here because it appears directly in the financial lives of people who are building from genuine alignment rather than purely from strategy. He called it synchronicity, the meaningful coincidence, the moment when what is happening inside a person and what is happening in the world around them correspond in ways that ordinary cause and effect does not fully account for. In the context of wealth building, this appears in a specific form. The person who is genuinely doing their work, who has found the contribution that is specifically theirs and is engaged with it from genuine investment rather than only calculated return, tends to find that opportunities appear in ways that feel almost implausibly well-timed. The right connection arrives at the right moment. The right collaboration becomes possible precisely when the work has reached the stage where that collaboration would be most valuable. This is not magic. What it is, practically, is the natural consequence of a person who is genuinely present and genuinely aligned, who notices what is actually there rather than only what they are looking for, who is capable of genuine response to what is genuinely available rather than only strategic response to what fits the plan. The genuinely aligned person is a different observer of the same world. They see things that the strategically focused person misses, because what they are looking for is not only the next step toward the predetermined goal, but anything that corresponds to where the genuine work is going. And the world, which is full of correspondence for anyone who is genuinely present to receive it, provides more of it to the person who is genuinely present. This is the specific financial dividend of genuine alignment, not guaranteed outcomes. Genuinely better perception of what is available, which, compounded over time, produces genuinely different results. The fourth element of the framework is the one that most directly challenges the conventional wisdom about what makes financial success sustainable. Jung influenced, both directly and through his ideas, Viktor Frankl, who found, in the most extreme conditions imaginable, that the primary determinant of whether a person survived and functioned was not physical health, not strength, not even luck, but the presence of meaning, of a reason deeply felt and genuinely personal to continue. Jung would say something more specific about the relationship between meaning and prosperity. Not just that meaning helps you survive. That meaning is a multiplier of genuine financial performance. The person doing work that is genuinely theirs, work that carries personal meaning and genuine engagement, is not relying on motivation or discipline to sustain the effort. The engagement is intrinsic. The curiosity is real. The problem-solving is driven by genuine interest rather than external obligation. And the result, over time, is a depth and quality of engagement with the work that the person doing it purely for financial return, however disciplined, never quite reaches. That depth and quality of engagement produces things that motivated effort cannot reliably produce. It produces genuine creativity, the kind that solves problems in ways that nobody who was just trying to meet the requirement would have found. It produces genuine mastery, because the person with real interest keeps learning past the point where competence has been achieved into the territory where excellence becomes possible. It produces genuine presence with the people the work serves, because genuine care about the work translates into genuine care about the outcome for others, which is the basis of the most durable business relationships. Find what is genuinely yours, not the intersection of what is in demand and what you are technically capable of. What is genuinely yours, the thing that would hold your attention without the incentive of payment. The problem that keeps you thinking past the end of the workday without you having chosen to keep thinking about it. The contribution that would feel genuinely satisfying to have made, regardless of whether it was rewarded. That is where the multiplier lives. And it is where the happiness lives too, not sequentially, together. Now let us talk about the fifth element, the one that integrates all the others and describes the actual path through. Jung called it individuation. And individuation is simply the process of becoming genuinely who you are. It sounds simple. It is genuinely demanding. And it is the specific work that the missing piece requires. Individuation is not a project with a completion date. It is an ongoing, imperfect, continuously deepening engagement with who you actually are, rather than who you have been performing yourself to be. It involves, specifically, three things that are directly relevant to the question of wealth and happiness. The first is shadow integration. Everything that has been pushed out of the acceptable self-image, the capacities that were dismissed, the qualities that were suppressed, the forms of value that were not recognized or not safe to express. All of that went into what Jung called the shadow. And the shadow is not just a psychological liability. It is a reservoir of energy and capacity that was put aside rather than eliminated. When the shadow material is brought into consciousness, when it is acknowledged and gradually integrated, what is released is not darkness, but resource. Energy that was being spent on suppression becomes available for contribution. Capacity that was buried becomes accessible for genuine value creation. For many people, the specific financial capacity that is most genuinely theirs is partially in the shadow. The form of contribution they would find most meaningful, the type of value only they can create, was judged too unusual or too impractical or too risky or simply not fitting enough of the accepted image of success to be allowed into the primary financial strategy. And it waits there, in the shadow, generating the persistent sense that something important is being left out. The second is ego self-alignment, moving from making financial decisions from the ego, from the strategic, image-conscious, optimize for approval and reward center, toward making them from the self, from the deeper center that knows what genuinely matters, what work is genuinely yours, what kind of prosperity would actually feel like prosperity, and not just like a different flavor of the same emptiness. This alignment does not happen through insight alone. It happens through practice, through the gradual development of the habit of asking, when making significant decisions, not just what is smart or what is likely to be rewarded, but what does the deepest part of me actually know about this? The third is the development of genuine relationship, not relationships managed for professional return. Genuine connection with people who know and engage with who you actually are, rather than only the persona. The most valuable professional relationships, the ones that generate the most significant opportunities and the most meaningful collaborative outcomes, are built on genuine mutual recognition, and that is only available when the genuine self is present, not the persona. These three things, shadow integration, ego self-alignment, and genuine connection, are the specific interior work that the individuation process involves, and they are the specific work that the missing piece requires. Not as prerequisites to be completed before the financial work can begin, as ongoing practices that are integrated into how the financial work is done. When this work is genuinely underway, something changes, not in the circumstances, though the circumstances tend to change too, over time, as a genuinely different person, genuinely different outcomes, in the quality of how it feels to be building. The specific texture of a workday, when the work is genuinely yours. The quality of the satisfaction when something you have built produces the result it was built to produce. The experience of prosperity, not as relief or as achievement, but as a natural expression of being genuinely in contact with what is most real in you and most valuable to others. Before this ends, I want to ask you something specific that I genuinely want to read in the comments. I want to address something directly first, because it is the most common objection to the framework I have been describing, and it is worth taking seriously. The objection goes like this. This sounds like advice for people who can afford to find meaningful work, for people who already have enough security to choose based on what is genuinely theirs rather than what pays the bills. Jung would not dismiss this objection. He understood that the realities of economic constraint are genuine, but he would also challenge the assumption underneath the objection, which is that meaningful work and financially viable work are two separate categories, and that the intersection between them is accessible only to the privileged. His clinical observation was that the constraint of economic necessity, as real as it is almost always less limiting than the psychological constraint of the unconscious configuration. That the person who has a deep and unexamined belief that the kind of work that is genuinely theirs is not the kind of work that can be financially rewarded is not simply observing market reality. They are experiencing that reality through a filter that is making it look more absolute than it is. The practical implication is not to ignore economic constraint. It is to do the interior work alongside navigating the constraint, rather than waiting for the constraint to be fully resolved before beginning the interior work. Because the interior work tends to shift the perception of what is possible financially in ways that nothing else does. Through the entirely ordinary mechanism of a person with a different unconscious configuration, seeing opportunities that the previous configuration was filtering out. The missing piece is not available only to the privileged. It is available to anyone willing to do the work of looking honestly at what the filter is and beginning the process of questioning whether it is accurate. Not what is between you and wealth. What is between you and happiness right now? Because the two questions have different answers for most people. And the gap between those two answers is where the missing piece is located. Name it here, as specifically as you can, because naming it is the beginning of working with it. If this landed in a way that matters, if it named something real about the relationship between your interior life and your financial and personal aspirations, I hope you will subscribe to this channel. What we explore here is Jung's actual psychology applied to the real questions of prosperity, purpose, and what it means to build something that is genuinely worth building. There is much more coming. And for those of you who feel a deeper pull right now, beyond the financial dimension, a genuine longing to reconnect with who you actually are, at the level where both genuine prosperity and genuine peace become possible, I want you to know about an ebook we created called Reconnecting with Your Divine Essence. It was made for exactly this, for people who are genuinely seeking more than better outcomes, more peace, more purpose, real inner healing, and a connection with what is most real beyond the noise of daily life. You will find it in the first pinned comment below this video. Carl Jung understood wealth and happiness the way he understood everything, from the inside out. Not as external achievements to be pursued through better strategy, as natural expressions of a specific interior condition. A condition of genuine alignment between who you are performing yourself to be and who you actually are. Between the work you are doing and the work that is genuinely yours. Between the prosperity you are building and the self that is capable of genuinely inhabiting it. The missing piece is not out there. It has never been out there. It is here, in the specific interior work of becoming, genuinely and at the level that matters, who you actually are. That is where both the wealth and the happiness live, together, as they have always been designed to.